Work? Yes. For me? Maurice Skellern was quite capable of ringing Charles simply to crow about the fabulous contract one of his other clients had just netted. Of course for you, Charles. What is it? It's a television. Wonderful. Directed by Tibor Pinkas. Even better. Tibor Pinkas was one of the legendary television directors. Having escaped from Budapest when the Soviet tanks moved in 1956, he had quickly risen through the ranks of British television drama. He had directed a play for ABC's Armchair Theatre before joining the BBC and working on the Wednesday Play, a series which transmuted in 1970 into the Play for Today strand. Tibor Pinkas had been at the top of his game at a time when the one-off play was one of the nation's glories, when it made headlines and prompted furious debate about the issues of the day. Charles had had a tiny part in one of Tibor Pinkas's productions in the early 1980s. He couldn't remember what the play was called, but it was one of the proudest entries on his CV. Unlike his performance as Sir Benjamin Backbite at the Bristol Old Vic, in this restoration comedy, Charles Paris himself looked in need of restoration. Western Daily Press. Charles was touched that someone of the stature of Tibor Pinkas should have remembered him, and surely there could be no other reason for this unexpected summons. He was also slightly surprised that the acclaimed director was still alive and working. But most of all, he was extremely cheered and encouraged. The demise of the one-off television play had been much lamented over the years. Its time slots had been taken over by endlessly recycling soaps and indistinguishable series set in hospitals, police stations, or forensic pathology labs, or, even worse, reality shows. Like most actors, Charles Paris had a deep-seated resentment of that form of entertainment. Pointing a camera at members of the public and waiting for them to make fools of themselves was not the highest form of art, but it was cheap, and television executives didn't care that such programs put out of work a lot of actors and writers who might actually have produced well-crafted drama. So the fact that a director of the stature of Tibor Pinkas was back in business might herald the return of the single television play. That would be really good news. What is it? Asked Charles. What's what? Asked Maurice. The play, the part Tibor Pinkas is offering me. Oh, well, there isn't actually a script. This was even better news for Charles. One of Tibor Pinkas's great triumphs of the late 1960s, before Mike Leigh hijacked the form, had been a play called Nexus, built up by the actors through improvisation. It was still hailed as one of the landmarks of television drama. If he was going to feature in a new improvised play by Tibor Pinkas, then Charles Paris's acting career was about to take a very definite turn for the better. Disillusionment had started to set in when Maurice Skellern told him that he was only required for one day's filming near Newlands Corner in Surrey, and that he was required to be there the next day, which was Friday. Dreams of Charles Paris being part of a long-planned masterwork by the great Tibor Pinkas began to melt away. It was a 6 a.m. call for costume and makeup. The car arrived in Hereford Road at 4 a.m. to pick up a somewhat frail Charles Paris. The excitement of having some work, combined with nervous uncertainty about what the work was, had led him to hit the Bell's whiskey rather hard the night before. He had ended up slumped in front of the television, watching what was apparently some program about the Wars of the Roses. It was the style of historical documentary which had become popular over recent years, in which modern-day footage was intercut by ancient documents and images, together with a minimal amount of costumed reconstruction, to produce a half-hour program padded out to an hour, which would have worked better on the radio. The show was presented by a quite dishy woman with large breasts. Charles had read somewhere that she was a professor of something at some university and a feminist historian. She had written a book on changing attitudes to menstruation through the centuries called The Bleeding Obvious, and appeared on Newsnight whenever a feminist guru was needed to...
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.